poor girl. Defended a homeless guy, then found out he was a billionaire. Before we begin the story, please leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Ethan Walker sat alone on a worn-out bench just outside a corner convenience store in East LA. His hoodie was faded, his jeans torn at the knee, and his sneakers looked like they had survived a war. He had carefully crafted this look. To the world, he looked like just another homeless guy wandering the streets. But inside, he was anything but. Just a few weeks ago, Ethan was sitting in a luxury boardroom, preparing to take over Walker Properties, one of the largest real estate firms in California, after the tragic death of his parents in a private plane crash. The media called him a billionaire orphan. But no one knew how empty he felt inside. Now, pretending to be a nobody was the only way he could breathe. He didn't want to be Ethan Walker, the CEO. He wanted to know how people treated someone with nothing to offer. That day he stood up slowly and entered the small store across the street. The bell above the door gave a soft chime as he stepped in. The cashier barely looked up. A few customers turned to glance at him, then looked away in disgust. "What's he doing in here?" a middle-aged woman whispered to her friend, loud enough for him to hear. Ethan kept walking, heading toward the fridge in the back. He pulled out a bottle of water and walked toward the register. As he placed the bottle on the counter, the store manager stepped in from the back room, a stocky man with slicked back hair and a permanent frown. "Hey, you! Yeah, you!" the manager barked, pointing at Ethan. "This is a business, not a shelter. If you're not buying anything, get out." Ethan calmly pulled out 2 crumpled dollar bills and placed them on the counter. "I am buying," he said quietly. The manager sneered. "Don't get smart with me. You people come in here to loiter. We've had enough complaints." Before Ethan could reply, a soft voice cut through the tension. "Sir, he's not causing trouble. He's just buying water. Let him be." The voice belonged to a young woman behind the counter. Her name tag read Lily. She had soft brown eyes, a long braid over her shoulder, and wore a worn-out polo shirt with the store's logo. She looked calm but firm. The manager turned to her. "Lily, don't get involved. This isn't your problem." "With respect, it is now," Lily replied. "He hasn't done anything wrong." The manager grumbled something under his breath and walked off, still glaring at Ethan. The tension eased, and Lily rang up the bottle. "Ignore him," she said, handing Ethan his change. "Some people forget how to be human." Ethan gave a small smile. "Thanks." Lily shrugged. "It's just water." "No," Ethan replied. "It's more than that." He stepped out, bottle in hand, and sat back on the bench. He watched the store from outside, sipping slowly, replaying the moment in his mind. No one had defended him like that in a long time, not without knowing who he was. Inside the store, Lily continued working. A co-worker leaned over and whispered, "You're brave, standing up for that guy." "He didn't do anything wrong," Lily replied. "Still," the girl said, "people talk." Lily rolled her eyes. She didn't care. Something about that man's eyes haunted her. Tired, lost, but polite. She had seen a lot of guys come in and out of that store, but this one was different. Back outside, Ethan watched a group of teenagers walk by. One of them threw a crumpled paper cup at his feet and laughed. Ethan didn't flinch. He had expected this. "Why am I doing this?" he muttered to himself. Then he looked back at the store and thought of Lily. That night, Ethan didn't return to his luxury apartment. He slept on a bench behind an abandoned building, hoodie pulled over his head. The city was loud, cold, and merciless. But for the first time, he felt like he was finally seeing the world for what it really was. And somewhere in that world, a girl named Lily Adams had reminded him that kindness still existed. He had to see her again. The next afternoon, Lily was restocking snack shelves when she heard the familiar chime of the front door. She looked up and saw him again. Same hoodie, same quiet expression. He walked slowly toward the back fridge, picked out a bottle of orange juice, and stepped into line behind an elderly woman. Their eyes met for a moment. Lily smiled first. "You again," she said as he reached the counter. "I forgot to thank you properly yesterday," he replied. "That meant more than you know." She shook her head, scanning the bottle. "You don't have to thank me for doing what's right." "Well, I'm Ethan," he said, extending his hand. She hesitated, then shook it gently. "Lily, you've got a kind heart, Lily." Her cheeks warmed slightly, but she tried to hide it behind a casual shrug. "Just doing my job." That day, Ethan didn't rush off. He sat at the small plastic table near the window, slowly sipping his juice. He watched people come and go, some polite, others rude, but none seemed to notice him, except Lily. For the next 2 days, he returned. Always in the afternoon, always buying something cheap. Sometimes he brought back a book to read. Sometimes he just sat quietly, watching the world. Other employees ignored him. A few whispered behind his back. "He's always here," one of them muttered. Like a stray dog. Lily overheard but didn't say anything this time. She just looked at Ethan, peaceful, quiet, always respectful, and shook her head. On the third evening, it started to rain hard. Customers ran inside with wet hair and umbrellas dripping everywhere. Lily was wiping the floor near the door when Ethan walked in, soaked from head to toe. His hoodie clung to his skin, and his shoes squeaked with each step. He walked to the counter, shivering. "You okay?" she asked. He looked at her, hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, just rough day. Where are you staying?" He didn't answer right away. Finally, he mumbled, "Got kicked from the place I was crashing. Couldn't pay. I'll figure it out." Lily blinked. She hadn't asked too much about his life before, but something in her chest tightened now. "You have anywhere to go tonight?" He shrugged. "I've been through worse." Lily stared at him for a long second. Her brain told her to be cautious, but her heart saw a man who had never once crossed a line, never begged, never asked for anything more than a moment of peace. "Come with me," she said suddenly. He looked surprised. "You sure?" "Yeah. I don't have much, but at least you won't be sleeping in the rain." They walked together in silence. Her small apartment was on the second floor of an old building 5 blocks away. The paint peeled off the door, and the hallway smelled like old soup and bleach. But it was clean, and it was hers. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. "Welcome to the palace," she joked nervously. Ethan looked around. The room was small, a twin bed, a table, a fan in the corner, and a portable stovetop. A cracked photo frame sat on the shelf, a picture of Lily, as a teenager with 2 older women beside her. Ethan noticed but didn't ask. "You can sit," she said, pointing at the bed. "I'll get you a towel." He sat, still stunned. She had let him in. Lily returned and handed him a towel and a t-shirt. "It's my ex's," she said. "Don't read too much into it." Ethan laughed, then sneezed. "Thank you." While he dried off in the tiny bathroom, Lily heated up leftover soup. When he returned, she handed him a bowl. "It's not much." He took a bite and smiled. "It's perfect." They sat on the floor, eating in comfortable silence. Rain tapped gently on the window. The lights flickered once, but held steady. When they finished, Lily got up and pulled a rolled mat from under the bed. "You can take the bed," she said. "No," Ethan protested. "You've already done enough. I can sleep here." "You're my guest," she insisted. They stared at each other for a second, then both smiled. Ethan finally lay on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. It was cracked and slightly water-stained, but he had never felt more safe. Across the room, Lily curled up on the mat with a small blanket. The fan squeaked gently as it spun. As Ethan closed his eyes, a single thought lingered. I've stayed in penthouses and suites with gold-threaded sheets. But tonight, in this tiny room with a girl who has nothing, I feel more human than I've ever been. The next morning, sunlight peeked through the thin curtains. Ethan slowly opened his eyes, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling. He reached out and touched the blanket under him. It wasn't silk or hotel-grade cotton. It was old, slightly frayed, but clean, warm, and real. He sat up and looked across the room. Lily was still asleep, curled up on the floor under a thin throw blanket, her arm tucked under her head. One braid had come loose and lay across her cheek. She looked peaceful. Ethan stood quietly and tiptoed into the tiny kitchen space. The sink held a few dishes from the night before. He found a sponge, dish soap, and got to work. By the time Lily stirred, the smell of hot tea was floating through the room. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. "You cooked?" "Just tea. And I washed the dishes. Figured I'd return the favor." She smiled sleepily. "You're a rare kind of guest." He poured her a cup, and they sat cross-legged on the floor, sipping in silence. Over the next few days, Ethan stayed. Lily didn't ask him to leave, and he didn't want to. Each morning they'd walk together to the convenience store. Lily no longer wore her uniform. She had been officially suspended for unprofessional conduct. She didn't say much about it, but Ethan saw the hurt in her eyes. While she worked on her resume, Ethan swept the apartment, fixed a leaky faucet, and even repaired the broken fan that had squeaked for months. Lily was surprised by how handy he was. "You sure you were homeless?" she teased one night. He chuckled. "Let's just say I've picked up a few skills along the way." They shared simple meals, peanut butter sandwiches, canned soup, and one night, macaroni with hot sauce. They laughed more than they ate. As the days passed, the walls between them fell, brick by brick. One night, the sky was grey and the air felt heavy with rain. Lily sat on the bed, hugging a pillow. Ethan sat beside her, their backs against the wall, legs stretched out. The rechargeable lamp cast a warm glow. "You never talk about your past," Lily said quietly. "Where you're from? What you used to do?" Ethan stared at the ceiling. "There's not much to say. My parents passed away not long ago. I came back to the States, and everything felt wrong, so I left everything behind to breathe." Lily looked at him. "Sorry about your parents." He nodded, swallowing hard. "Thanks. And what about the suit you wore the first time I met you?" "I had an interview," he said quickly. "Didn't get the job." She raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. "You don't look like someone who fails many interviews." Ethan smiled faintly. "I was overqualified." Lily laughed. The sound filled the room like a warm breeze. Later that night, after they had cleaned up dinner, they sat again, just talking. About childhood, cartoons they loved, the scariest thing they'd ever done. Ethan finally asked, "You ever regret helping someone?" Lily shook her head. "No. I've been helped by strangers when I had nothing." "You don't forget that kind of kindness." She paused. "I used to live in a foster home, then bounced around from place to place. Worked as a cleaner, waitress, hair braider. You name it." Ethan watched her silently. "But I always believed, if you've been through darkness, don't be the reason someone else stays in it." He felt something tighten in his chest. "You're incredible," he said softly. She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just surviving." Later, as they prepared for bed, Lily grabbed the mat again. "Take the bed," Ethan offered. "Nope, my floor, my rules." He gave up. As she lay down, she whispered, "You're not like most guys." "Good different or bad different?" She smiled into her pillow. The kind that makes me want to trust again. Ethan lay awake long after she drifted off. Her words echoed in his head. Trust again. It was something he had lost too. But in her tiny apartment, eating cheap food, fixing broken things, and hearing her laugh, he felt like someone worth trusting. He wasn't ready to tell her the truth yet. Not about the company. Not about the billions. But he knew one thing. He didn't want to lose her. Not now. Not ever. It had been nearly a week since Ethan started staying with Lily. Their routine had become natural. In the mornings, Lily would fix toast while Ethan made tea. They'd sit on the floor, talk about the news, joke about their noisy upstairs neighbor, and walk together through the cracked sidewalks of East LA. But something was changing inside Ethan. Every time he looked at her, he saw peace. The kind of peace money had never bought him. And that scared him, because he hadn't told her the truth. He wasn't just some unlucky guy searching for work. He was the heir to $1 billion company, and he was falling for a girl who thought he had nothing. One evening, as Lily came back from a failed job interview, she looked exhausted. Her shoulders slumped, and her shoes were soaked from stepping in a puddle. Ethan opened the door for her. "No luck again?" he asked. She shook her head and dropped her bag by the door. "They said I was overqualified and underqualified, whatever that means." Ethan helped her out of her wet jacket and hung it by the door. "You'll find something. I know it." Lily looked at him, her eyes tired. "I'm just tired of always starting over. Always fighting to prove I deserve a chance." He gently touched her hand. "You shouldn't have to fight alone anymore." That night, as rain pattered against the window, Ethan cleaned the tiny stovetop and prepared a simple dinner. Lily sat cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through job boards on her cracked phone. Suddenly there was a loud knock on the door. They both froze. "Who is it?" Lily called out, cautiously. A deep voice answered. "It's me. Open up." Lily's face went pale. Her lips trembled. Ethan stepped forward. "Who is it?" She whispered. "It's Tyrell. My ex." "Should I leave?" "No. Stay right there." She walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Standing outside was a tall man with tattoos down both arms and a cold smirk on his face. Tyrell Moore. He had a scar over his right eyebrow and a gold chain around his neck. His voice oozed arrogance. "I see you're still in this dump," he said. "I figured you'd come crawling back by now." "I told you we're done," Lily said firmly. "I just gave you space," Tyrell said, leaning closer. "Now I'm back." He looked over her shoulder and saw Ethan in the background. "You got a man living here now?" he snarled. "Is that why you won't pick up my calls?" "Leave, Tyrell," Lily said, her voice steady. "Please." Tyrell's smile vanished. His eyes narrowed. "You'll regret this," he growled. "You always come back to me." He turned and stormed off down the hallway. Lily slammed the door shut and locked it. Ethan walked over. "You okay?" She nodded slowly, but her hands were shaking. Later that night, Lily sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the door like she expected it to burst open again. Ethan sat beside her. "He used to control everything I did," she whispered. "Where I went. Who I talked to. I wasn't even allowed to laugh at other people's jokes." Ethan clenched his fists. "He's not coming near you again." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You don't know him." "I don't need to. I know I'm not letting anyone hurt you." For the first time, Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. They sat in silence for a long time. No more words, just the steady sound of rain outside, and the quiet promise in Ethan's heart. The next day, Ethan left early, saying he needed to take care of something. He didn't tell her where he was going. He headed to a quiet coffee shop in West LA and called a number he hadn't dialed in months. "Marcus," he said when the line picked up. "Ethan," the voice answered, surprised. "Is this really you?" "Yeah, I need your help." Marcus Grant had been Ethan's childhood friend. They had played video games, pulled pranks, and once promised to become detectives together. Marcus kept his promise. He was now a respected LAPD detective. Ethan explained everything: his escape, meeting Lily, Tyrell's appearance, and the growing threat he couldn't ignore. "I need to know everything about this guy," Ethan said. "I think he's dangerous." "I'll look into it," Marcus promised. "And Ethan, does she know who you are?" Ethan went silent. "She thinks I'm just a drifter." Marcus sighed. "Man, this is going to catch up with you." "I know." Back at the apartment, Lily was mopping the floor when she heard a familiar voice outside her window. She froze. "Girl, you think I'm going to let some broke nobody take my place?" Tyrell shouted from the alley below. Lily's heart raced. She peeked through the curtain. Tyrell stood below, talking on the phone to someone, pacing angrily. "Yeah, I saw him. She's hiding him. But I'll find out who he really is." A car pulled up beside Tyrell. The man inside had slicked back hair, expensive sunglasses, and a voice like poison. "You still want her?" the man asked. Tyrell nodded. "Always." "Then do what I say. You get her." "I get the guy." The man smiled. It was Vanessa Cole, Ethan's ex, the same woman who left him for a richer CEO and now wanted revenge after being cut out of the company. That night, Lily didn't tell Ethan what she saw, and Ethan didn't tell her who he really was. They were both holding secrets. But someone else was watching, and the next move would change everything. The next morning was unusually quiet. Lily woke up first. Ethan was still asleep on the bed, his arm resting across his chest, face calm, almost boyish in sleep. She watched him for a moment, her heart full and confused. She still didn't know much about him. He was kind, helpful, gentle. But where did he come from? What had he been running from? She turned away and tiptoed into the kitchen to make breakfast. Ethan woke up to the smell of eggs and toast. He stretched, sat up, and smiled when he saw Lily already dressed, her hair pulled up in a neat bun. "Morning," she said softly. "Morning. You look ready to take on the world," she smiled. "I got a call from a small diner 2 blocks over. They need a part-time waitress. I'm going to check it out." "That's great," he said, sitting up straighter. "I'll walk you." "No need," she said quickly. "You should rest. I'll be back before noon." She paused at the door. "Thanks for everything, Ethan." "I mean it." Then she left. Ethan sat back on the bed, rubbing his face. His heart was racing, and not because she was gone. He knew the time had come. He couldn't keep lying. She deserved the truth. He picked up his phone and called Marcus. "You find anything on Tyrell?" Marcus's voice was tense. "Yes." "He's not just dangerous. He's connected to a woman named Vanessa Cole." Ethan's chest tightened. "I knew it. She paid Tyrell to spy on you and possibly hurt you. They know where you are." "Ethan, you need to get out of that apartment." "No," Ethan said firmly. "I'm not leaving Lily." "Then at least let me send someone." "No, I have to fix this myself." "I need to tell her everything." But Ethan never got the chance. Later that day, as he stepped out to buy groceries, a black SUV rolled up beside him. Before he could react, 2 men in black masks grabbed him and dragged him inside. A needle pricked his arm. Everything went black. Lily came home to an empty apartment. Ethan's shoes were by the door. His phone lay on the table, unlocked. The groceries she asked him not to buy were half spilled across the floor. Something was wrong. She called his name again and again. Nothing. Her hands shook as she ran outside and checked the street. No sign of him. No neighbors had seen anything. She called the police. They were polite, but slow. Maybe he just went somewhere, they said. Give it a few hours. Lily knew better. She grabbed her phone and did the only thing she could think of. She called the number Ethan had once scribbled on a napkin. Marcus Grant. Meanwhile, Ethan woke up in a dark, concrete room. His head was pounding. His arms were tied to a chair. His mouth dry. The first thing he saw was Vanessa Cole, dressed in designer heels and a cold smile. "Still think you can hide?" she said, circling him. "What do you want?" Ethan croaked. "I want what you took from me," she hissed. "Walker Properties. You tossed me aside like I was nothing. Now you'll watch your empire burn." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You'll never get the company." She laughed. "I don't need the company. I just need the world to see you fall." She turned to Tyrell, standing in the shadows. "Watch him. Don't let him out of your sight." As she walked out, Ethan felt his rage boil. Not because he was tied up, but because Lily had no idea what was happening. And she might be next. Back at the apartment, Marcus showed up. He had already pulled security footage from a nearby shop. When Lily saw the video of Ethan being forced into the SUV, she covered her mouth in horror. "He's in danger," she whispered. "Because of me." Marcus shook his head. "Because he trusted the wrong people." "Who is he really?" she asked. "You know, don't you?" Marcus hesitated, then finally said, "His name is Ethan Walker. He's not homeless. He's the CEO of Walker Properties. He's a billionaire." Lily went still. The room spun. Her knees weakened. "I don't understand." "He didn't lie about how he felt," Marcus added quickly. "He just didn't want you to see the wealth first." Tears filled Lily's eyes. "He made me believe I was enough for someone, even if I had nothing. He slept on my floor, ate my leftovers. And all that time, he was a billionaire?" Marcus nodded solemnly. "He chose to be with you when he could have been anywhere else." Lily turned away, her voice trembling. "But he still lied." That night, she sat alone on the bed, hugging Ethan's old hoodie. Every memory now felt like a lie. The laughter, the meals, the long talks. She didn't know what hurt more, that he had hidden the truth, or that he might never come back to explain why. Ethan didn't know how long he had been tied up. His arms ached, his throat was dry. Time seemed to move in slow, cruel circles. But through the pain, one thing stayed clear in his mind. Lily. Her laughter, her kindness, the way she looked at him like he was just a man, not a name. He had to survive. Back in East LA, Lily couldn't sleep. She sat by the window in the dim light of early dawn, Ethan's hoodie draped around her shoulders. The street below was quiet. For the first time in days, the city didn't feel like home. It felt hollow. She kept replaying his words in her head. "You don't have to fight alone anymore." But he had fought everything alone. His grief, his identity, his enemies, without telling her the truth. A knock at the door broke her thoughts. It was Marcus. He looked tired but determined. "We found him." Lily stood. "Where?" "A warehouse outside the city." "Abandoned. Cops are on the way now, but I'm going in first." "I'm coming with you." Marcus hesitated. "It's dangerous." "I don't care." Meanwhile, Vanessa Cole was growing impatient. She stood in front of Ethan, arms crossed, heels clicking on the concrete floor. "You don't get it, do you?" she snapped. "All I wanted was a seat at your table." "A chance. But you tossed me like garbage." "You sold your soul for money," Ethan croaked. "You never wanted love." "You wanted power." Vanessa leaned in close, her voice icy. "And I'll have it. even if I have to take everything from you. Marcus arrived at the warehouse just before dawn with Lily beside him, hiding behind a dumpster as backup officers surrounded the building. He gave the silent signal. The SWAT team burst in, shouts, running. Chaos. Within seconds, Tyrell Moore tried to run out the back door, but was tackled to the ground. Vanessa tried to escape through a side hallway, but Lily was standing there. The two women locked eyes. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Let me guess. The little charity case girlfriend. Lily didn't move. You're pathetic. Vanessa's smug smile vanished. The cops handcuffed her and dragged her away. Inside, Marcus found Ethan tied to a chair, bruised and bleeding, but alive. Bro, Marcus said as he cut the ropes, you've really got to stop attracting drama. Ethan tried to smile. Where's Lily? Outside. Ethan pushed himself up, wobbling on his feet. Take me to her. Outside, the sun was rising as Ethan stepped into the light, shirt torn, lip bleeding. Lily gasped. She ran to him and threw her arms around his waist. I'm so sorry, he whispered into her hair. I thought I lost you, she whispered back. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Lily pulled back and looked into his eyes. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared you'd only see my name. The money. The pressure. I didn't want that between us. I just wanted to be Ben. Lily was quiet. I still don't understand how you lived like that, she said finally. Sleeping on the floor, eating leftovers, hiding from your world. I wasn't hiding, Ethan said softly. I was searching for something real. He took her hand, and I found it. Later that day, Ethan returned to the Walker Properties office for the first time in weeks. His assistant stared as he walked in, bruised but calm. Mr. Walker was back. He called a board meeting and fired 2 executives who had been secretly working with Vanessa. He restored the company's reputation overnight and made it clear who was in charge now. Meanwhile, Lily tried to go back to normal. She returned to her little apartment, back to her modest life. But her world had changed forever. That night, there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find an elderly man in a crisp suit with a warm smile. Behind him were black SUVs and a few men in dark suits. Miss Adams? The old man asked. Yes? I'm Franklin Walker, Ethan's grandfather. Lily froze. I owe you a thank you, he said. You saved my grandson twice, first from danger, then from himself. I didn't do anything special, she whispered. He smiled kindly. You reminded him what love feels like. He stepped aside and Ethan emerged from the car, clean, healed, holding a small velvet box. Lily. She covered her mouth, her heart pounding. He knelt down, right there in front of her old apartment door. I've lived in mansions, flown private, eaten with kings. But I never felt alive until I met you. You gave me laughter. You gave me purpose. You gave me love. He opened the box. Will you marry me? Tears welled in Lily's eyes. Yes, she whispered. The neighbors cheered from their windows. Strangers clapped. Someone even shouted, She said yes. Ethan stood, slid the ring on her finger, and held her close. At that moment, nothing else mattered. Sunlight poured through the wide glass windows of a luxury estate nestled in the hills of Beverly Hills. But inside, nothing felt over the top. It felt warm. Lily stood barefoot in the kitchen, wearing one of Ethan's oversized shirts, flipping pancakes while laughing at something on the TV. The place was spotless, quiet, but filled with signs of real life. Grocery bags on the counter, Ethan's shoes by the door, a coffee mug half full near the sink. She didn't feel like a guest anymore. She felt like home. Ethan walked in wearing sweatpants and a goofy smile, holding a bouquet of flowers. For my fiancée, he said proudly. holding it out. Lily raised an eyebrow. "What did you do?" "Nothing, yet," he grinned. "But I did schedule a press conference." "A what?" Ethan sat on the couch, motioning for her to join him. "I'm done hiding," he said seriously. "I want the world to know the truth. Not just about what happened, but about you." Lily looked unsure. "You don't have to." "I want to," he cut in. "You defended me when I looked like I had nothing. You stood by me when it was dangerous. You saw the man, not the title." He kissed her hand. "You deserve to be seen." Later that day, cameras flashed across a press room downtown. Reporters from every major network were present. Security was tight, but the atmosphere buzzed with curiosity. Ethan Walker stepped up to the podium. No suit, no tie, just confidence. "I want to speak not as a CEO today," he began, "but as a man who was lost." He told the story, how he disappeared after losing his parents, how he lived among strangers, how he met a woman who treated him with kindness and dignity, not knowing who he was. He glanced at Lily, sitting in the front row, tears in her eyes. "She didn't know I was rich," he said. "And when she found out, she didn't want my money. She wanted honesty, and I failed her. But she forgave me." The room went silent. "She reminded me of who I was. She is why I stand here today." He looked straight at the cameras. "So if you're watching this, and you've ever judged someone by what they wear or where they live, look again. The richest souls don't always wear diamonds." Applause filled the room. That night, Lily and Ethan sat on the balcony of their home, watching the city lights below. "Still miss the little apartment?" Ethan teased. Lily smiled. "Honestly, yeah. But only because that's where I met you." He pulled her closer. "Then let's never forget where we came from." 6 months later, Lily opened her own non-profit cafe in East LA, the Second Chance Cafe. The mission? Employ those who had been overlooked, former foster kids, ex-cons, single moms, struggling veterans. People like she once was. At the grand opening, Ethan cut the ribbon with her. The mayor came. So did Franklin Walker, smiling like a proud grandfather. And so did many people from Lily's past, some humbled, some still whispering. But this time, Lily didn't care. As the cafe buzzed with activity, an old woman walked in, dressed in rags, her face weathered from the streets. Lily stepped forward and smiled warmly. "Welcome," she said. "You hungry?" The woman nodded. Lily handed her a hot plate and said, "Then sit. Your family here." Ethan watched her from across the room, heart full. Because now the girl who had once defended a homeless guy was building a life that gave hundreds a second chance. Not for fame, not for fortune, just for love. What would you do if the person you helped turned out to be a billionaire? Would you still love them if they had nothing at all? Would you fall for someone with no money? Or would you wait for the mansion and ring? Rate this story from 1 to 10. Like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional stories. And remember, sometimes the richest people are the ones with the least to prove.